Welcome to Phoenix Doll, the show where we take old dolls and revive them to be new, unique, exciting dolls. Today we're going to do something really fun and take Alistair Wonderland and make him into Oliver from Space Boy, one of my favorite comics, specifically his damaged one. I'm going to soften the hair a little bit using water because it came very stiff and I needed to make it easier to cut off. Placing a bag in a cup, I made a makeshift garbage bag to keep the cleanup easier. Once the hair is completely cut off, I'm going to put it in hot boiling water so that way I can pull the head off itself. Once that's been in there for about 30 seconds to a minute, I carefully dried out the hair and the head so that way I wouldn't burn myself with water and pulled it off. Be careful because you don't want to break the neck peg. With the head off, I'm going to use various tools to get the rest of the hair out of the head, including needle nose pliers, other pliers, and a crochet hook. Once that's all done, I'm going to use pure acetone to remove the factory paint of the eyes and the lips and the paint on his head. Once that's done, I'm going to do a few repairs, including adding glue to the part line and to cut off some rough edges along the head. For the hair, I'm going to use yarn, and I wrap a bunch around my hand and trim it off. To vary the size of and length of the hair, vary the size and length of the amount you wrap around your hand or whatever else you wrap it around. Try to keep it as even as possible. After that, I take a small bunch, make it into a loop, and loop it around itself to have it hold against the coat hanger, so that way I can brush it out. Once all of that is done and you have a mass amount, I'm going to use various tools and brushes to brush it out to make it long, smooth whiffs. I later found out that this brush that I was using wasn't going to work that well, so I had to change to a fine-tooth comb. With that done, I cut off the head and out the eyes. I forgot to cut out the rest of the eye for the damaged part, so I had to redraw that in and redo it. I'm going to be making the eyes out of resin, so I made a measurement of which eyes would work best and used a measuring spoon to make the mold. I'll also be using these pearl half beads to make the pupils. Using apoxie sculpt, I'll make the base mold. Mixing equal parts of both epoxy to a uniform color, I put them in the measuring spoon. I later found out that this wasn't going to work because it got really stuck in the measuring spoon and I couldn't get it out. And the only way for me to get it out was basically destroying the mold. After brushing out and straightening all the wefts, to make them into long wefts, I cut off a small section, spread it out a little bit, and used some tacky glue to glue on top of the ends of the wefts. After brushing it down, I'll add another layer of glue so that way it can seep through and get through everything. This is the mold that I made. The first mold didn't work because, as I said, it got stuck and I had to destroy it. The second one I made was out of a ball and putting one of the pearl beads in it, and that got stuck so I couldn't get it out. And the third one worked the best. I originally was going to make the shoes out of paper mache, but it wasn't working out and I went with a different method. Doing the face up, I am going to use Mr. Super Clean to prime the base, and I'm going to add some pink to the cheeks as well as to the lips. Using a white colored pencil, I added some highlights to the Cupid's bow of the lip and a little bit to the nose. Taking some black pastel, I'm going to add on to the face the damaged areas where the soot of the attack was. So I placed it around the eye, and I extended all the way back to his ear, went across his nose, and down his chin. When opacity doesn't build up anymore, spray it again with Mr. Super Clear. Mr. Super Clean. I constantly forget which one it is. Taking a smaller brush, I'm going to add the shadows underneath his eyes. And to make it more like shadows, I'm going to take a little bit of a paper towel and take off the excess by buffing it off. The eyebrows will have to be painted in because the white pencil wasn't building up enough. After adding epoxy sculpt to the eye to give the robotic part, and to the chest to make the chest piece, I'm going to make resin eyes using jewelry resin that I got from the local craft store. After making the base model out of epoxy sculpt, I used a baking clay to make the actual mold that I'll be using most often. I made 3 initial sizes so that way I had various things to go off of. Using the varnish gloss, I'll be coating the inside of the mold so that way the resin can come out easily. Mix equal parts of both resins and mix them together. Also be sure to measure carefully so that way you don't end up throwing a lot of resin away that you could have used for later. Once the resin was set, I tested out which ones would fit the best, and I found that the smaller one of the two would fit best in the normal eye. They turned out a little pink after I pulled them out due to the baking clay that I used. So I'm going to paint over them with some more white to smooth out the look. To color the inside of the iris, I'm going to be mixing black and white paint to give the gray color. I first grabbed the silver, which is not what I wanted because I don't want it to match too much to the robotic parts of the eyes. Taking a small little bit of black, I mixed it in with a large amount of white because a little goes a long way with black paint. Now I'm going to add in the pupils using tacky glue and tweezers. The robot pupil has a white pupil, so I'll be using that one in the smaller eye. And I'll be using a black one in the bigger eye. And I found that I needed to use a smaller pupil so that way it would work better and look better as well. To make his pants, I'm going to be taking hunter's pants, unpicking them, and making a pattern out of that. I don't need these loops, and I won't be adding the details of the pockets and Once the eyes had plenty of time to dry, I mixed some clear resin to put on top and to dome it. Carefully take care of all bubbles and try to make sure that it doesn't have any ability to bubble anymore. I fill in the iris first and then let it dome over to the rest of it. Also use a lighter or some sort of flame to help pop any bubbles and get them up to the surface. This will cause the resin to melt a little bit and also go around the eye, which will give the rest of the eye a glossy look. For his shoe, I'm actually going to be taking Hunter's shoe and repainting it. The paper mache wasn't working out and sticking as well as I wanted it to, and this is going to have a better look anyway. I'm going to paint the whole base a dark navy blue, and then add details later after it dries. After it dries, I'm going to be using a metallic blue to give some details, including to the buckle on the side and to the toe. I'll also be taking black and silver paint to do the laces and the studs around the laces. Once that's all done, I'm gonna add on a gloss top coat with gloss varnish to give it a shiny, leathery look. With the eyes glued in, I glued the head back on and also painted it white so that way I could have it match the hair some more. Taking one of the wefts, I'm going to be using tacky glue to glue it along the hairline. I'm going to repeat this process all the way around to the top of his head. Once I was done gluing the rest of the hair on, I trimmed away all the excess and slowly trimmed it to be his hairstyle. It was initially very difficult because this was my first time doing it, but I was able to work with it, and I actually had one point in time when I put the hair on backwards to give a part to give it a little more bump along the front. I wanted to show you guys the pattern that I used for the pants. After I picked it, I drew this onto a paper, marked the front, the back, and the center, and where to stitch first. I stitched the center first so that way I can stitch up the side once it was done, and then reverse it. For the shirt, I took Hunter's hoodie and unpicked it and then redrew it to be a shirt pattern. The back I split into two parts so that way I could make it so it could Velcro if I wanted it to. The front, I took the split front ends and put them together and drew them together, so that way it would be more of a full shirt style. The bottom I didn't need, but it's there in case I ever need to make a dress shirt. And then the arm was taken from the arm and I extended it a little bit so it could be a long sleeve. These ended up being a little big, but that worked out in the end because when I finished it, I was able to trim away excess so that way it would fit better. And don't forget to love your companion dogs. I stored them in this used medicine bottle so that way I know where they are. These are the pants that I made, and this is the shirt. Sorry for the angle, I'll fix the camera. It worked out really well, and I did sew up the back, so this shirt will not be coming off easily. It was very difficult to get on in the first place. But it worked out really well because I was able to put in the damage that came from it, including the chest piece, so that way you could see it, on the arm, which does have some damaged material, and also along the side. I also wanted to show you something really cool that I did. I'm going to need a LED flashlight, and I'm going to go into a room that has no windows. So this laundry room will work. Charge it up a little bit. Close the door and turn off the lights. I made it so his eyes and his chest piece glow in the dark. Because he is a robot, I wanted it to stick out a little bit in the dark when he would, that he is very robotic. In the end, I am very happy with how this turned out. I think it worked out great. Please tune in for more as I make Amy next from Spaceboy as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again.